Welcome back, everyone, to another amazing Book Creator live stream. My name is David Hotler. I'm super excited to be joined by Brent Warner, author of EdTech for Multilingual Learners. We brought Brent on, and I'm going to let him introduce himself in a second, but we have him on during AI Literacy Week. That is this week right now. We are so excited to be bringing such incredible authors, speakers, and guests right to your inbox all week long so that we can really explore this concept of AI literacy. What do we need to know, understand? What kind of attitudes should we have around this technology and its adoption into education, into our lives, the whole nine. So I'm super excited. Brent, I'm going to turn over to you in just a second to introduce your book, but I want to remind the listeners down in the comments, if you want to win a copy of our guest's book today, fill out that form, and we are going to buy a copy of Brent's book and send it to EdTech for Multilingual Learners. Brent, welcome to the live stream. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, man. Good to be here. I want to understand some of the motivations behind and the themes behind your book.
Yeah, so I came up, I teach English language learners, so that's my field and it always has been. And I've been early on in bringing technology in. There's always been kind of a subfield of language learning called computer assisted language learning. But it was kind of, off in the corner for the nerds. And, I was in that corner for a long time. But after COVID, I think, really a lot of people started to go, okay, we're more techie now. We kind of understand some of these things. And so a lot of people wanted to have ways to use technology without spending tons of time figuring out how to use it with their language learning skills. And so that's what I did. I wrote the book, EdTech for Multilingual Learners. It's published by ISTE, and it's great because it's the first language learning book that ISTE has published. And so I'm really happy to kind of help bridge that gap between the worlds of kind of EdTech and language learning together.
I love too that you brought up call and really draw everyone's attention to this idea that EdTech has been supporting multilingual learners for a really long time, but the introduction, I think, of the more powerful computer models and really these large language models has really brought the ML conversation right back to the forefront because we have such powerful tools to assist these people. But with all those powerful tools, we have a lot of new responsibilities to consider with AI, and that's really why we're here now. And so I know that this is a topic that you have probably grappled with for a long time, thinking about ethics and the understanding of tech. But now with the biggest wave of tech in our faces, AI, how are you, with your students, with your audience, defining AI literacy? This is a question we're asking all the authors.
Yeah, so I don't give a straight single definition to my students and say this is AI literacy and this is what you must know, right? But we work on it throughout time because it's really about understanding how they're interacting with it. And to me, one of the big parts that's important for them is to understand, when am I controlling my learning and when am I giving up my learning when I'm using this, right? And so a lot of the students, fairly say, hey, well, I can just get, AI to do this thing for me. And then we want to stop to think and say, well, when we're using AI, what is the quality of the output that it's giving to you, right? And of course, it can be good quality, right? But it's not necessarily your voice. And so for me, I spend a lot of time trying to talk to the students about how do we use this stuff as a way to boon and build our skills without giving up our autonomy and giving up our own sense of what it means to be a learner. And so really it's less around a specific definition as it is more kind of an approach to saying, like, what am I trying to do with this? And is this going to help me or hurt me in the long term if I'm using it in this way?
Yeah, that's really smart. And I love your approach to it and really making sure that the students are thinking about the promise and the peril and keeping everything in balance, and that we still have to be humans, man. So, technology has long been something in education that has tried at its very best to sort of to shorten the gap, right, of those who have and those who have not. So I'm wondering about conversations you've been having with AI, just out in conversations in classes talking about equity, plagiarism, bias, well-being. Like, this is a brand new tech that's hitting us right in the face. Are those conversations that are coming up in your classroom?
Oh yeah, all the time. And I think the plagiarism one is the biggest one, which I'm happy to talk about it, of course. The problem is I feel like we're getting pulled into the conversation around plagiarism and reinforcing this idea that students are always plagiarizing, which is certainly not the truth, right? And so it feels like every time it's just like, oh, cheating, 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 cheating. And it's like, well, do we have those world of cheaters that are out there, or do we have students in our classes that are actually trying to learn something and get some value out of it? And so I do think it's a real problem. So I don't want to kind of minimize the importance of it. And at the same time, it's like, are we guiding these conversations to say, how am I helping my students with this tech, or how are my students learning to help themselves with this tech? Or is it, back to the, oh, you're just using this thing to cheat, right? Well, cheating, plagiarism, all these things have always been a problem in education at some level, one level or another. And there have always been a few students who are going to do that. The, big chunk of students who might do it once or twice, and then a few students who never ever will do that stuff, right? And so it's really like, where do we want to focus that conversation? And to me, I really want to move the conversation away from, oh, well, are you cheating? Am I catching you cheat? Or plagiarizing, or whatever else it is, to what are the reasons that these are problems for you that make you want to move into it? And so for language learners, a lot of times there's stress around like living in a new country, for example, trying to feel like they're keeping up with their classmates who are not learning languages, who are, native English speakers, for example, and trying to kind of say like, hey, we are not all in the same places, and we need to understand that. And then once we understand that, then we can start looking at what is this technology doing, and what are the areas of help that you need. And so trying to focus on that, and then really saying, by the way, we can use this tech to boost you up really quickly, much more quickly, to get to the place where you feel comfortable with your classmates, or where you feel like you're at an appropriate level, rather than just like, too bad, you're going to have to just deal with it and see what happens.
And that's really the equity piece that I was fumbling through my last question trying to get out, thinking about, for multilingual learners, that boost that they're getting in the classroom is the equity piece, bringing them quickly up to the level of their peers, even though they sort of had a harder starting point than them. So what are some of the ways that you're seeing AI used to shorten that gap and create a little bit more equity in these classrooms?
Yeah, so some teachers are doing things like, they're kind of running their classes on Zoom on the side, and then they have the transcriptions going on, or you can do this with PowerPoint and a few other tools where you can actually have the subtitles going as you're speaking, right, live in class. And so that can be one thing that can help students out to say, I can't really hear it, but when I read it, I know these words. You can do those as translations sometimes, right? I don't necessarily recommend that if your real goal is language acquisition, but if you're talking about, hey, I just need to be able to support these students who need help in my content area. If I'm teaching a biology class, for example, maybe they understand some of the stuff in their language, but not so much in English. So there's a lot of ways that you can use technology to support the student as they're also dealing with the burden of figuring out all the language on top of the content area that you're teaching. So, playing around with some of those things, talking to the students directly and saying like, well, how do you deal with this in daily life, right? Because I think that's one thing a lot of teachers tend to take it on themselves and say, I have to figure all of this out. But many of your students have already kind of figured it out. And so you can say, well, hey, what are you doing with them to help them bring that together? Or what are you learning from them in order to make it just as seamless a possibility as you can get for them?
I love that. It just off the top of my head, I'm curious of strategy that a student has taught you, or something you learned from a student about using AI or something to support.
Yeah, I mean, my first idea goes back quite a while, so it's not a new technology, but it's still really useful. Is just the Google Translate, right? I remember walking into one of our language labs one time, and the student had no English whatsoever, and they just had the two-sided Google Translate where you could kind of hold it and you look at your side and they look at their side, and you're just talking to each other and reading at the same time. That technology is nothing new, but at the same time, I was like, oh, I didn't really think of it like that, right? I I didn't really understand the conversation piece where we can kind of read each other's conversation as we're going. And so then I started integrating that as soon as I was talking to newcomers, who really didn't speak any English at all.
Well, it's interesting too, because you say this isn't necessarily a new thing, but gosh, I remember I moved to Spain and was a language learner myself in 2016. And I remember using Google Translate and getting laughed out of the room because the translation was like decent.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, it's like you can put a book in there and it spits back
It's
incredible
impressive.
translations and interpretations. So love to see the tech really impacting a space that you've been in for so long, and to see your audience really pick it up. So I want to bring it back to the book a bit, and I want to talk just a little bit about what folks should expect, because we're kind of short on time here. So I want to bring it back to the book. What should folks expect once they've read your book? What are some of the things that they're going to walk away?
Yeah. So for the book, I had this kind of secret Trojan horse hidden inside of the book, which was to make people feel more comfortable using technology with their students and kind of onboarding up to the highest degree possible. And so there are a bunch, it's 48 activities for the classroom, all based on different skill sets. So reading, writing, listening, speaking, pronunciation. And so what the idea is that you can get these activities and they're kind of ready to go, but a lot of times when you read activities inside of a book, you're like, hey, cool, okay, I got the idea, now I got to figure out how I'm going to implement it, how I'm going to share it with my students, all of those things. And so what I did is inside of every activity there's a QR code that takes you to a page that gives you a slide deck that walks through the entire activity with your students, and you can customize that slide deck plus all the resources of any tools that I happen to mention. I did build it in a way that's not focused on the tools, although I do say, hey, here are some tools that you can use to make it done. But the real idea is then, hey, I'm 80-90% of the way there to just start implementing it with my students and get going. And so that way, the goal is to lower the barrier and to say, hey, I don't feel like I'm a very techie person, but I know that my students are living in 2025. We want to bring some tech into it. We want to bring some modernity into this conversation. And so the goal is not just to say like, hey, here's a bunch of activities, but it's to kind of spark a spark a fire for the teachers to say, oh, okay, actually I can do this. Actually, I can kind of take my own twist on this. I can move it in my own direction, or do this thing that matches for my students' needs. And so while it is, of course, about language learning and helping students figure all those things out, and you can just kind of run it right out of the activities that are there, the real goal is to say, all right, I just need a first step into this world, and then I can figure out what I'm going to do and how I'm going to make it work specifically for my class and my class's needs.
And Brent, this is definitely a book that teachers need in today's age. There's so many languages being spoken in our classrooms these days. And I am so appreciative for you championing, pioneering this space for so long, and then putting out a book like this that's really going to support teachers using any kind of ed tech, right? Because AI is just now a feature in everything, and the strategies in your book are what stand the test of time. They're device agnostic, and they're just good ideas. So I really hope that folks fill out the form down in the comments to win a copy, or just head over to Amazon, pick yourself up one. Don't be shy.
You can buy one for a friend, right?
Yeah, I know. Get one for you, win one for you, buy one for your friend. That's a great idea. So listen, we're about out of time. We're gonna say goodbye. Everyone should fill out the form, but do you want to leave the listeners with any last little tidbit?
I would say that, the new world of teaching really requires constant exploration and experimentation with things. And so if you have kind of settled yourself in as a teacher and you're feeling stressed out about whatever it is that you're teaching, I would say, okay, take the breath and realize we're going to be making a lot of changes, right? It's going to continue to happen. And so we kind of have to redefine our understanding as teachers to say like, hey, technology, students are expecting this technology at this point. And so how are we going to accommodate them and bring in good pedagogy? And so kind of keep in mind, we're going to keep on moving forward, but we have the chance to shape what all of this looks like, which is the super exciting part. We can say, hey, I want these things to go in this way. I want them to help my students do these things. How am I going to make that happen? And I think if we go in with that mindset, we'll be really successful.
Wise words, Brent. I really appreciate your time and energy. And for all of these watching, thanks for tuning in. And we'll see you next time. Thanks. Take care.
Thank you.